Joining us this morning from the legendary Oak Ridge Boys, bass singer Richard Sterban. And Mr. Sterban, thank you so much for joining us today. We sure do appreciate it.
Well, Chris, thank you. When you promote the Oak Ridge Boys, when you promote the fact that we're coming your way, you help us. And I'm going to speak for all the Oak Ridge Boys. And right at the beginning here, thank you. Thank you for helping us and doing what you're doing.
Well, it sure is a pleasure to talk with you, and it's going to be great because from what I understand, I've heard many, many stories about the Oak Ridge Boys coming to Independence, Kansas, and you're coming Saturday, October 28th. And one of the things I have heard, Southeast Kansas and Northeast Oklahoma, definitely huge fans of the Oak Ridge Boys, that's for sure. And I'm sure it's always fun and coming back to places that you've been before and seeing familiar faces.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Independence is also the hometown of our longtime manager, Jim Halsey. And whenever we play Independence, it's like a reunion, So, and we've been playing there so many times over the years, it almost feels like, in a way, coming home, so to speak. So I can speak for all the Oak Ridge Boys, and I can tell you we're excited about coming your way. We're going to do our best to make it a great time, a great night. We plan to have a great time, so we want to encourage people, come on out, spend some time with the Oak Ridge Boys, and let's celebrate together.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things where you've been doing this for almost 50 years now as the four guys together. You can just tell that the passion is still there from all four of you. You just love what you do, even, with time marching on, basically.
Well, you're right about that. There are several factors involved in our longevity, but I think first and foremost, you already mentioned it. You already touched on it. We still love doing what it is that we do. We still look forward to getting up on that stage, taking our music live to our fans and to our audiences. That has not changed over the years. This year we've been together for 50 years, which is kind of mind-boggling. And over the course of the 50 years, that has not diminished. We still love doing what we do, and I think hopefully that will be the case when we come your way. And I hope you'll be able to recognize that when we perform, there in Independence one more time.
One of the things that really hits home with me is growing up, my dad got me hooked on Southern gospel, and he got me hooked on the Blackwood Brothers and the Statesman recordings, definitely from even the late 50s, early 60s. And you know where I'm going with this, with J.D. Sumner, and one of my all-time favorite voices. It's crazy to me how you could be, on the stage and hearing some of those 56 endings, as Elvis would say. And what was that like, if you don't mind me asking, hearing those in person?
Well, as you mentioned, before I joined the Oak Ridge Boys, for about 2 years, I did sing with J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet. And, that was a special time in my life. J.D. was a huge influence on me personally. J.D. Sumner, he's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's lowest bass singer. And he was an influence on me. In some ways, he was kind of like a second father. And we would spend hours in the back of the bus talking about singing, but the psychology of bass singing. Bass singers approach singing differently than other singers. And we would talk about that, and he gave me several examples of things that I could do. And that, like I say, he was like a second father to me, and that's an experience that I will never forget, singing with J.D. and the Stamps. And, I think I happened to be in the right place at the right time back then, because while I was there, J.D. got a phone call from the biggest star in the world back then, the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis. And we found ourselves singing on stage with Elvis. So I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I was able to experience that as well. And Elvis, as you can imagine, was also a major influence on me personally. I have some great memories of the times I spent with Elvis. I got to know him just a little bit, and I'm thankful I was able to experience that, really.
That had to be an amazing time in life, and I understand what you're saying, because dabbling in a little bass singing myself, just a little, it is amazing how much that little man inside your head can kind of, cause you to not be able to hit a note that you're capable of.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's one thing he told me that I will never forget, and I pass that on to young aspiring bass singers. And he's right. He says there's a man in your head that tells you you cannot do this. You cannot hit that low note. But you've got to learn to defeat that little man and tell him, no, you are wrong. I can hit this note. That's the advice that he gave me years ago, and to this very day, it still sticks to me sticks with me, and even helps me out sometimes when I'm on stage.
Absolutely. And so for songs to come up, like working on a building where all of a sudden, you're hitting a note and it's recorded and it's that E. I mean, that has to be a really amazing feeling to know, hey, this is on recording. I can do this.
You're absolutely right. I mentioned, JD and I would talk about the psychology of bass singing, and there is a certain psychology. First of all, you have to learn to be totally relaxed. You cannot scream a low note. You have to sing it easy. You have to take it, and there's like little tricks that you learn over the years. But we're like bass singers. We're like a little club, a clique of singers and we're different than regular singers, if that makes any sense.
It does. It totally makes sense. Which leads me kind of to my next question.
Okay.
What happened to bass singing in country music? I mean, there hasn't been a 4-part male quartet or even just a quartet bass singing since there was a group in the 90s that tried it, and all of a sudden it's just disappeared. Why in the world can't there be quartet singing still in country music today? That's my curiosity.
Well, that's an interesting question, and I don't know that I have the answer to your question, to be very honest with you. Yeah, I do know that before the Oak Ridge Boys came along, there was the Styler Brothers, and we owe them a lot. They kind of blazed the trail. They went ahead of us, and they were the first 4-part harmony group in country music, and they set the stage for us to come on, and we came on behind them, and we had, for many years, we had kind of like a friendly, competition. The Styler Brothers and the Oak Ridge Boys. But they've been retired for a long time. Harold Reed, their bass singer, he passed on a few years ago. Thank the good Lord, I'm still alive, and I plan to keep singing as long as I possibly can.
Absolutely, and I understand the kind of friendly competition, because in my family it was Team Statler versus Team Oak Ridge Boys, and I'm sure you know which side I was on. Just saying. Just saying that. So I'm sure you haven't gone without chatting with someone without having to talk about Elvira, but I kind of want to bring it up just a little differently, if I may.
Okay.
I've been noticing on YouTube there is a group, kind of an a cappella group called Home Free, that has taken Elvira, and I've seen the video so many times of you all and Home Free singing Elvira. So have you noticed kind of a resurgence? Of course, Oak Ridge fans are always going to request Elvira, but have you kind of noticed a resurgence even from some people that may not have ever heard you all in person? Has there been kind of a resurgence of Elvira since then? Well,
I think Home Free, I think they're a great example of younger guys kind of picking up the torch and carrying it on. They give us credit for inspiring them to do what they are doing. And I remembered when they called us and they said they were going to record Elvira, they asked us if we'd be willing to sing on Elvira with them. And we said, sure, we would be glad to do it. And I remember that day we went to the studio, and all day long we hung out with these young guys, almost seems like they were trying to be young Oak Ridge Boys, really. And we got to know them, and they became pretty good friends. A month or so later, they called us again and said they're doing a video on Elvira. Would we be glad to be on the video as well? And we said, sure, we would be glad to do it. And once again, we spent all day with them, shooting the video, got to know them even a little bit better. And we've played several days with them, since that time. And I have to tip my cap to those guys. They're young guys that are trying to do things right, and they are a real credit to our business. They really are.
Absolutely. So just a couple more questions. Of course, I don't want to take too much of your time, but we sure do appreciate you joining us today. You've had the experience really of transitioning twice, if you will. Of course, when the Oak Ridge Boys transition from the Oak Ridge Quartet. And I remember listening to those albums, with Willie Wynn and Herman Harper, and just how great those were, and then seeing that transition happen. But really, you kind of had the same transitioning effect moving from gospel to country, kind of like when JD did from gospel to moving to Elvis. Can you talk about how that changed then, and has the gospel? It seems like the gospel community has really come back and accepted the Oaks, especially folks like Bill Gaither. Can you talk about how that happened then and how it's transitioned to today?
Well, yeah, I have to give our longtime manager, Jim Halsey, a lot of credit for helping us with that transition. I remember when we first met him, he said, "There's something very special about you guys." He said, "And you guys are 3 minutes away from being a major act in the music business." And by that, he meant a hit record. And so what he did after he met us, he started booking dates. He put us on shows with Roy Clark, for example. Roy became a great friend. He put us on dates with Jimmy Dean and with artists that allowed us to be seen in front of a lot of people. But I think even more importantly, getting back to the 3 minutes he was talking about, he negotiated a record contract for us with ABC Records, which later became MCA Records, and we acquired the services of Ron Chansey as our producer. And Ron started to find hit songs for the Oak Ridge Boys. And in 1977, we had our first country music hit, a song called Y'all Come Back Saloon, written by a lady named Sharon Vaughn. And I'll never forget being in Ron Chansey's office, listening to the demo of Y'all Come Back Saloon, and I thought the demo could have been, it was so good, it could have been a hit. But I remember we got it in the studio, you could tell it felt like we were on the right track. It felt like we had a hit, and sure enough, it became our first #1 country record, and it set the stage for what was going to happen for the next several years. Almost everything for about 12 to 15 years, everything we released went to the top of the country music charts, and we established ourselves as a major name in country music. But in the process, we never turned our backs on gospel music. We always included gospel music, on our records. And even today, this very day, we're now being produced by Dave Cobb, who's one of the hottest guys here in Nashville. And he always makes sure that we include gospel music on our projects because he said, he produces a lot of acts in country music, but we're the only guys that can do this 4-part gospel harmony, kind of the way we do it. So he feels like it's very important. So yes, we've established ourselves in country music, but we've never turned our backs on gospel music because we still believe in the message of gospel music, and we will do some gospel when we come to independence. You can count on the facts.
It's one of those things where you all have already established it, and then there's great artists like Larry Gatlin and Ricky Skaggs that you can be a Christian and sing country music, and I think that's something that sometimes gets lost with people.
Well, I think you're right, and unfortunately there sometimes seems to be a trend moving away from that, but that is not going to be the case of the Oak Ridge Boys. I think when we walk on stage, you can tell where we stand, and I think that's very important to us.
Well, the buzz is already beginning to take shape here when people found out that the Oak Ridge Boys are coming back to Independence. The excitement has already been building. I know the crowd is going to be ready, and I know you all are going to be ready, and I'm ready. That is for sure, because it's going to be a great night, and so many genres covered, but yet it's going to be the Oak Ridge Boys sounding better than ever, and we're all excited for that.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. We're looking forward to celebrating 50 years of being together. That's a special thing. You don't see that very often in the music business. So we want to encourage people, come on out and let's celebrate together, because I think it's very important. And we are not planning to retire, but we are announcing a farewell tour because we want a chance to go around this country and to thank our fans for allowing us to have the great career that we've been able to have over the years. So we're not going anywhere, but we are embarking on a farewell tour so we can thank our fans for allowing us to have a great career.
Absolutely. And, of course, sir, we do want to thank you for your time here today.
Well, Chris, thank you again for promoting the fact that we're coming your way. I'm speaking for all the Oak Ridge Boys. We appreciate it, so thank you very much.